Hey everyone, welcome back to Assetto Corsa Competizione on Low Fuel Motorsport for my first race in the new rig. It's an exciting day, and can I mark the occasion in style? Well, I'll be starting from the front row. However, the lap time of Cat Mies in pole position suggests that the race win may be a step too far here. Cat's time of 2:01 flat is more than a second quicker than anyone else on the grid. However, the podium is very much on here. Let's get down on track and see if I can make it happen. Well, I'm starting to get used to these front row starts with those clear views of T1 ahead. However, I doubt I'll be getting there first because Cat Mies in that Porsche to my right has some serious pace. And I may now have a second Porsche on my inside as well. Daniel Kuba had a much better start than I did from P3, so I think I may have to let him have this one. It certainly seemed like too much of a risk to try and close off that inside line into the first corner just for the sake of holding on to P2. We've got 25 minutes of racing to go, so there's more than enough time for me to get that position back. However, we can forget about Cat Mies in front of Kuba. Mies was so much quicker than the rest of us. I'm expecting to see that Porsche clear off within the first lap here. So my focus has got to be solely on the blue Porsche right in front of me. Daniel Kuba starting from P3 on the grid. His qualifying time was 0.3 of a second slower than mine. However, qualifying pace is one thing, race pace is another thing entirely, particularly on this hot track surface. Tyres will warm up, we will lose grip, and it is going to be tricky. Kuba, in fact, looking a little bit loose in front of me through this first half a lap, so that gives me cause for encouragement. However, he is really quick, exiting the hairpin. Look at the pace of that Porsche pulling away up over the hill. Now, I've always struggled with corner exit speed here at Suzuka, so it's not a Lamborghini thing, it is definitely a Chris Rogers thing. I just can't find the grip I need to get on the gas early enough. I'm always tempted to drop the TC a notch or two, but that runs the risk of me losing control completely, so I'm sticking with TC4 for now. Yeah, look how that Porsche bursts out of the corner. Kuba opening up a few tenths straight away. Right, let's go back and check out a replay of the start. I knew it was unlikely I was going to get to T1 before Cat Mies alongside me on the front row. However, look at that blue Porsche. Kuba right alongside me before we even make it to T1. So yeah, exactly the right call to hang it out wide and give him that position. However, as we approach the end of this opening lap, I'm starting to wonder if Kuba's got a little bit more pace than his qualifying time suggested. I was just starting to lose ground, but he's running way too deep into the final chicane, so this will give me an opportunity to challenge coming down the start-finish straight. Or will it? Look how fast that Porsche has recovered. Kuba blasting out of that corner like a rocket. Right, we're going to jump forward to the end of lap 3, and maybe this second position is going to be a little bit harder to come by than I initially imagined, because Kuba is opening up a bit of an advantage now. He's 1 second clear. I will close in coming into the final chicane, but I've run in too hot myself now. I've made exactly the same mistake that Kuba made at the end of lap 1, and I am not going to recover nearly as quickly. Look how fast that Porsche is ahead. Kuba clearing off down the start-finish straight. And now I may have problems behind. The BMW of Daniel Emino closing in fast. Emino is going to have a look up the inside. However, I'm really confident on the brakes coming into this first corner. So I knew as long as I held my nerve, I would hold on to the position. And in fact, Emino has run a little bit wide exiting the first corner there. So a bit of breathing room behind again. And that'll give me the chance to concentrate on that blue Porsche in front and closing the gap back down on Daniel Kuba. I'm certainly quicker than the Porsche through this section. His advantage down to 0.6 of a second now. However, the problem is going to be after this left-hander. Once we get back on the gas, expect to see that Porsche charge away again, and there it goes. But yeah, my third position was under threat momentarily as we approached T1. Daniel Emino had a much better run down the start-finish straight. However, he just wasn't quite far enough alongside to try that move up the inside of turn 1. Lap 5 now. We're approaching the halfway point of the race, and things still couldn't be any closer. Kuba holding on to second position. I'm just 0.5 of a second behind, yet still I'm struggling out of the corners. Look at Kuba just open up a couple of extra tenths there. Meanwhile, behind me, I've got 2 drivers, both within a second of me. Daniel Emino is just 0.4 of a second behind in 4th, and then Rafael Pawlowski breathing down his neck in 5th. I close in a little bit on Kuba in front through Spoon. He's actually a little bit wide exiting the corner there. Oh, and the rear gets a little bit loose as well. This might be an opportunity. I had a much smoother run out of the corner. I'm surely going to pick up a toe down this back straight, but can I get close enough to attack? It doesn't look like I can. Well, this is a little bit more encouraging now. If I can just get right onto the rear spoiler of that Porsche, it may help to cancel out some of that speed advantage that Kuba has exiting the corners. Meanwhile, behind, look how close Emino is getting now. We'll switch on the onboard camera from Emino's point of view because he is breathing down my neck, just 0.4 of a second back himself. Meanwhile, the gap to Kuba in front is just too big for me to take advantage of the toe. I'm not going to be able to try and move up the inside into turn 1. So instead, I'm just going to hang it out a little bit wider to see if I can switch back up the inside and challenge ahead of the S's. Granted, it was a bit of an ambitious idea, but I thought it was worth a try, if at least for putting Kuba under a little bit more pressure. Realistically, with my lack of straight line speed compared to that Porsche, maybe my best chance of an overtake is actually to stay behind, apply as much pressure as I can and possibly force Kuba into making a mistake. He's going to be seeing my Lamborghini get bigger and bigger in his rear view mirror. He was a little bit wide exiting that left-hander. He almost went out onto the gravel there, so I'm going to be right behind him coming into Degner. Again, there's not going to be a way through here, but if I can breathe down his neck, hopefully he will start feeling the heat. Look at the rear view mirror, Emino closing back in again, just 0.4 of a second behind now. And Will Constantine are even closer together coming through the hairpin, so I'm just going to be a bit more defensive coming into this corner. I don't want that BMW trying to tuck it up the inside. Exiting the corner then, look at Kuba go straight away. He's opened up a couple of tenths once again, and now I find myself closer to Emino behind than I do to Kuba in front. One thing I've discovered though is that I'm quicker than Kuba through the corners, particularly through Spoon Curve. We saw Kuba get it wrong a lap ago and he's made exactly the same mistake again. In fact, he's out even wider this time. This surely now is an opportunity. I've got the extra speed, I've got the toe, and I've got a long straight ahead of me. So I pull out of the draft. We're going to be side by side approaching 130R. It's grit your teeth time. This is not an ideal place to tuck it up the inside, but I've committed myself and I've held my nerve and taken second position. It was a gamble, but I left Kuba with no choice but to back out. Oh, look behind, the red Ferrari of Pawlowski, out of control going into the final chicane. Somehow he didn't take anybody with him. What a close shave that was. Wow, let's go back and take another look at that, starting with the overtake. Now I've got the extra speed coming down this back straight, and opportunities to pass Kuba have been few and far between. I had to take it, but I do admit it was a little bit aggressive. I forced Kuba into backing out of that one. You really can't go through there too wide. Well, now let's watch the red Ferrari, Rafael Pawlowski. Oh, that couldn't have been any closer to taking Daniel Emino with him. Riding on board with Pawlowski now. He sees the pass ahead, not just me, but also Emino getting past Kuba. He sniffs the opportunity, so he's going to go for it up the inside, but brakes way too late and somehow finds the small gap between me and Emino. One final look now, looking back from my Lamborghini, and Pawlowski is flying through the shot. Wonderful reactions from Daniel Emino. Did so well to avoid getting collected in that. Right, back to the live action. It's lap 9. We're 2/3 into the race now, and I am struggling for grip. Look at me almost lose it out of the first corner. Now, I had managed to open up a 1.2 second advantage over Emino in third, but I'm starting to struggle now, and slowly but surely Emino is creeping ever closer. The gap now down to 0.5 of a second, so he is really starting to smell blood here. Meanwhile, I'm beginning to find this incredibly challenging. I'm struggling to find any grip through this S's section. It felt like I was just slipping and sliding my way all through that part of the circuit. Right, into Degner. The BMW still just half a second behind. Kuba a little bit further back, 1.5 seconds now. Oh, a big slide! Under the bridge, I'm going to struggle to save this one. Somehow I managed to keep it out of the barrier, but I have surrendered second position. I may surrender third position too. Immediately I switched defensive into this hairpin just to avoid Kuba snapping back as well. But look at that Porsche now all over my rear end like a rash. Now we know that Kuba's quicker than me through this section, so I've just got to make my Lamborghini as big as I possibly can to try and block any way through for Kuba. It looks like I've managed it for now. Kuba having a look up the inside into Spoon, but I'm just far enough ahead to get to the apex first. But yeah, nervy 9th lap to say the least. Let's take another look at the mistake. I'm just carrying a bit too much corner speed into that right-hander. The rear steps out. I'm oversteering almost into the barrier. Somehow managed to rescue it, but I've lost a position, dropping from second down into third. But can I do anything about it? Can I get that second position back? There are still 6 minutes left on the clock. We're starting lap 10 and I close right in on the BMW. There is a glaring example of how much more corner speed I've got through that first turn. I mean, I knew I was quicker, but it almost caught me out there just how much quicker I was. I had to get on the brakes as hard as I possibly could to avoid rear-ending the BMW. But this is exactly the sort of pressure I put Kuba under earlier in the race. It made him crack. Can I do the same again? Can I make Emino crack? But let's not forget Kuba either, because he is just 0.4 of a second behind now. We know that Porsche's got pace, so if Kuba sniffs an opportunity down one of these long Suzuka straights, we know he is going to go for it. So things simmering along quite nicely here. Are we going to get an explosive finale to this race? Well, one driver who's feeling no pressure at all is Cat Mies, now more than 15 seconds clear at the front of this race. Meanwhile, I have to go defensive again into the hairpin because Kuba just 0.2 of a second behind now, so I take as tight a line as possible into that sharp left-hander. It's done the job for now. I'm holding on to P3. Well, thankfully I wasn't the only one struggling with a lack of grip over these final 5 minutes. Kuba's pace really dropped off and he's now more than 4 seconds back as we return to the live action on the very last lap. And I've pretty much given up all hope of finishing in P2 while I'm working as hard as I possibly can to try and stick with Daniel Emino. I've just not got the pace or the grip to challenge him. So really all I can do is try to stay within striking distance and hope he makes a mistake. However, it's going to be me who makes the mistake. I just get a little bit loose, exiting the hairpin, and that is my chance blown. Yeah, for the remainder of the lap, I watched that BMW with optimistic hope that he may make a mistake, he may lose control and gift me that second position, but it wasn't to be. Yeah, so Daniel Emino holds me off to take that second position. I have to settle for third. However, I said before the start of the race, I knew I wasn't going to win the thing and that a podium was the best I could hope for. And a podium is exactly what I got here. So I'm not disappointed in the slightest. Sure, I had decent pace. I had enough pace for that second position. My fastest lap in the race was a 2:02.2. That was certainly the best of the rest. However, I just struggled for consistency. The lack of grip, I was really struggling as the tyre warmed up in the second half of the race and I just lost a bit of stability, a bit of rhythm, and it cost me that second position. But I'm really happy with how things went. I've got podiums coming out of my ears in ACC at the moment. 6 months ago, I never thought that would be possible. So I'm certainly making good progress here. Hope you enjoyed watching and I look forward to seeing you again for the next one. Cheers for now.